He made a statement an hour after Frank got confirmed yesterday as Tottenham manager, thanking Ange, and obviously we know how close their relationship was, but very curiously and very openly, I would say, criticised the problems at this club, should we say, saying that Ange overcame obstacles that have existed and have always existed and will always exist. Okay. Now, for you, was that a blatant shot at the hierarchy? If it was, does that mean his days are numbered? Is there no way back for him? Do you want him to stay off the back of that? Yeah, what were your thoughts on it?
Look, I think it's one of those things you could read into it however you choose to read into it. You could look at that and say, oh, that's definitely a shot at Daniel Levy. But he hasn't always existed. He hasn't always been an obstacle. He's only been here 20 odd years. Maybe he's been here as long as Romero has known. But I don't think there's that much in it. I'm going to sit and say I don't think there's that much in it. I think Romero, he was obviously had a fantastic relationship with Ange Postecoglou, but I don't think that's his way of saying, get stuff, now I'm off, because you've sacked Ange. I think it's just us reading too much into it. I might be completely wrong. I still think Romero stays, and I hope he stays. I think he showed in the Champions League, he showed in the Europa League final, he is perfectly capable of being our captain. I thought he was epic in the final. And I think his attitude, his head's been in the right place. I can't believe that's all down to Ange. If it is, and it is just purely he was playing because he likes Ange so much, then I don't care if he goes or stays. But I'm choosing to think that wasn't a snidey dig at Levy, that he was just making a point that obstacles could be, various things, injuries, they could be things of other teams, I don't know. I'm just not going to read into it.
Always exist. It's very, I don't know, that's quite heavy, I would say. To be implying injury, I don't know, maybe all right, but
a lot of people are saying it's definitely aimed at Levy. I'm just choosing not to look at it that way, because I think if you can read into most people's statements two ways. That's why I don't like text messages, because you can read them in one way.
But wait, Kate, do you think if people are right and it is aimed at Levy, is there no way back for him?
Not really. I mean, I don't think that means there's no way back, but it depends how Levy takes it. If he takes it as a personal dig and gets the then yeah, maybe we'll let him go. There's a lot of people saying he'll definitely go. If he goes, he goes. We move on. I'm not going to cry, but I just would like to see him stay, personally.
Jimbo, what's your take on the Romero situation? Do you think it was a dig at Levy?
I know. I think it's just a statement he made. I mean, look, these players, right? Look at Ben Davies and Sonny. How many managers have they seen?
Many.
Managers come and go. Players know that. And maybe some players do get attached to some managers more than others. But at the end of the day, they're getting paid to do a job, and that job is play football for Tottenham Hotspur. Right? When Ange is there, they play football for Tottenham Hotspur under the guidance of Ange. Now it's going to be under the guidance of Thomas Frank. They know that. That's their job. It's not... I can't see it making a blind bit of difference to Romero. He'll sit down, I would imagine, and listen to the talk that Frank's going to give everybody, and then he'll decide then if he wants to stay or go. But look...
what do you think he meant by obstacles that have always existed and will always exist? What do you think he meant by that line?
He probably does mean the hierarchy, that make it hard for Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, look at some of the buys we could have had. We could have bought Grealish for 24 million, was it?
Mm-hmm.
And 12 months later, he went for 100 million. I mean, Levy does make problems for himself sometimes. But I think that it'd be down to Thomas Frank what happens with Romero.
I just think if he was aiming it at Levy, he would have put something more along the lines of obstacles that we all know exist within the club, or something like that.
He did say that, didn't he? Kind of, basically.
He's just not saying the words you did.
Obstacles that have always existed. Well, he hasn't always existed,
so and will always exist. That's
nonsense. It
But
doesn't.
it has
To
always,
me,
it kind of, in footballing terms, it has always existed. 24 years is basically a lifetime in football.
not for me, it's not. I mean, that's half my age. It's not. So for me,
Yeah,
I
but
remember.
in footballing years, that's a long time.
I just don't see it that way. But maybe me and Jimbo are looking on the positive side.
Look, let's be brutally honest here, right? Last season, how good was Romero last season? For through the whole season, how good was he?
Yeah.
What would you give him out of 10? But you got to go from the beginning of the season till the end of the season. What would you give him out of 10?
Probably 6, 7. Yeah.
Exactly. He's one of these players. He's one of these players. He plays with what's in his head. If he's not in the right frame of mind, you don't get the Romero you should get. But it shouldn't be like that when you're getting paid to do an elite sport. Do you see Van Dijk play like that?
No.
You could probably pick in a whole season, probably 2 games Van Dijk is off it. You know, that's the difference between a world class player and one that's underneath them. And Romero for me is 2 in and out. You know, when he wants to play well, he will. If his mind's not there, he's all over the place.
So you'd be happy to sell?
Well, it depends what a Romero you get. If Frank can come in and keep him on it, he seems to lose. He seems to go through a period, Romero, where he's not with it. You know, where he goes into tackles like where to break people's legs and
moments.
Yeah, he has, but yeah, a bozo mode. And I just think if he went, would I be gutted? No, I wouldn't. If you want to know the truth.
Okay, let me ask you this. Well, I'll bring Brian in a minute, but let me ask you this, Kate. If it wasn't kind of a statement that was directed at anyone, what was the timing about? Why do you think he did it an hour after Frank was appointed? Do you think that was coincidence?
No, I think he timed it to perfection. I think it was a mic drop moment. He waited until the manager announced, and it was his way of saying, look, I'm not happy about what's happened, and I want to make it clear I'm not happy that Ange was sacked. And that part of it was obviously at Levy, because you can tell by the message, the way you read it, that he's not happy with the hierarchy for sacking Ange. So I believe in that part. I just don't think the whole obstacle thing myself is aimed at Levy. But that's me. I might be just looking on the bright side of life, which Jimbo's made me that way. Asked me 2 years ago, and I'm telling you that's aimed at Levy, but Jimbo's turned my mindset round. So I'm being a happy backer and saying he's not aiming it at Levy.
So what do you think, Jimbo? What do you think about the timing then? Do you not think it was curious?
No, that was spot on. He done that on purpose. That was obvious.
I'm saying it was on purpose, right?
Yeah, he did it on purpose.
What was the purpose of it?
I suppose to get his point across that he loved Ange, right?
Yeah.
But then there's conflicting statements there, because there was a period in the middle of the season where there was a lot of talk that him and Ange never got on, right? And then all of a sudden we win this trophy and he loves Ange. So
I don't think that's true. I think throughout the season there's a lot of evidence that he was very close to Ange. Actually, a lot of evidence. If you see a lot of the reports about when he was talking to the Argentinian media after we lost to Brighton, a lot of the Argentinian media were criticizing Ange, and he called in to one of the stations defending Ange, saying, yes, we commit a lot of risk, but we'll get the benefit from it. He's a great manager. Also, he retweeted a tweet in December after we lost to Chelsea saying that if Tottenham do get rid of Ange, he'll look to leave, and he retweeted that tweet. So I think there's a lot of suggestions that he was very close to Ange, actually. And after there's also reports after we won the Europa League that before we won the Europa League, suggesting if Ange was to leave after the season, then their futures are tied together. There was reports saying that. There was one report, I remember what you're talking about, Jim, that said that he didn't get on with Ange, and that was from the Footy Insider, who also said him, Vicario, Bentancur were onto each other. But I didn't believe that at all. I think it was a rubbish article, in my opinion.
So in that case, Sim, he's not playing for Tottenham Hotspur. He's playing for Ange Postecoglou.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say to you.
It's this badge that pays his wages, right? The cockerel, Tottenham Hotspur, not Ange Postecoglou. So
agreed, but as a fan base, we all have issues with the board, don't we? Right? We have a board. We have issues with the hierarchy, and should we be surprised that the players maybe feel similar to that? And on the flip side, within that kind of context, we now have a manager who they feel is a winner who they really like. They got on board with and won us a trophy. So they feel like we should keep this together and maybe we can win more under him. And if they were to let him go, then there's no guarantee that we're going to continue to win trophies. Or we can win trophies, I should say, under another manager. So they'll be very unhappy letting that manager go because he's a winner. He's the only one who's proved he can win a big trophy under this ownership, I guess.
And that's above his pay grade. And it's like Maddison said, they suffered this season, having to go week after week, loss after loss. You can't tell me any footballer finds that enjoyable, losing week after week. He's not paid to make.
He kept them believing, didn't he? That's the point. He kept them believing that they'll still win this trophy.
I know I get it, and the trophy's brilliant, but it weren't enough to save his job. So
agreed.
For me, getting them believing that they can win a trophy means nothing to me if they're going to play like dog crap every week in the Premier League. And Romero, maybe he thinks, if we stay together, but he's not paid to think that. He's paid to play football. So, like it or not,
you want your players and the coach to have a close relationship, don't you?
Of course.
But not to the point where they down tools and have a strop if their manager gets sacked.
No one's saying he's downing. Well, I guess I'm suggesting he might want to look to leave. I understand what you're saying, but I think you want your players to have a relationship with the manager, so that even if they leave, they wouldn't be happy with that in a way. You don't want them to be unhappy that the manager's leaving, but you also want them to fester that relationship. And once they have it, that's why it's a difficult decision to sack the manager, because you've got the players behind him, and it takes time to build that relationship.
Poch had that though. Poch had
was it right to sack him?
But you didn't really see the likes of Sonny coming out saying, you overcame obstacles to get us to Champions League final. You just move on. I'm sorry. I get what you're saying, Sim, but that's sentimental to me. They're paid to do a job. Yes, it's nice when they come out and say, I really appreciate you. You're a good guy. Sonny's statement to Ange was lovely. But then you draw a line under it and you move on. You've got a new manager now. That's it.
I think Poch and Ange are two different scenarios. I think with Poch, I think his time had come to an end, Tim. I think that he looked tired. He looked worn out. He didn't look the same man. He never had the energy that he had before. And I think that wasn't his fault or the player's fault. I think Levy worn him down. I think that was the hierarchy that done that to him. But with Ange, we're 17th in the league, right, which is terrible. But he give us a moment of history, right? I've been a Spurs fan. I've been watching Spurs 55 years, right? I've seen that before, but to see it again, this time was even more special. He give us fans something, the club something that it's just never going to be forgotten. It's going to be in the history books. The man who said he'd win a trophy in his second season, and he didn't win the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup. He won a European trophy. That was momentous. It was just unbelievable. So I can understand why they think it's harsh to sack him, because I thought it was harsh. I thought it was really harsh. I wanted him to go into a third season and see what he could do. I thought he'd earned the right for that. But at the end of the day, we're just Spurs fans. They get paid by the club, right? So they have to accept this decision like we have to accept it. Ange, I love you. I will always cherish what you did for us. But now I'm moving on to Frank, because now he's our manager. And they need to do that as paid players and athletes for the club.
Where are you on this, Brian? We've been talking about I know you spoke about it yesterday. You've had a night to sleep on it. Do you think definitely it was a shot at the board, by the way, that which Kate and Jimbo may think otherwise? And do you think he should be caring so much about a manager leaving, and regardless of whether Ange is here or not, he's an employee of Tottenham, and he should be willing to put any of those feelings aside for the manager, for the good of the club?
My views on the message he sent have not changed one little bit. This is the second time this season he had to apologise, didn't he? Because he had a shot on Levy, and he had to get taken down.
Ange said he was wrong to do it publicly. Yeah,
exactly. It's the second time he's done it. Like I've said, with that message, and I put a tweet out after I saw the statement saying, whether you agree with the timing or his love of Ange or whatever it may be, The timing and everything is completely wrong. Completely wrong. And especially for a new manager to have to deal with that straight away. Whether he's doing it to engineer a move or whatever, he's just done a smaller, more polite version of Antonio Conte. That is, in my opinion, a complete arrow at the board, or not the board, a particular person. As I said, once again, the timing is atrocious. The timing should not have been. You could all see that there's no coincidence that came out.
Yeah.
As soon as the manager was confirmed, he's had all week since Andrew's gone, like the other players have had, to put this out. But this, there's no doubt about it. Saying the problems always exist. He's been here, and if we look at this, including temporary managers, he's had Nuno, he's had Conte, he's had Stellini, he's had Mason, and he's had Ange. He's had more managers than years he's been at the club. If we look at it, it's always changed. We look at transfer windows where we've been left short and unprepared. Nothing's changed. I think he's saying the problems have always been here since. I think he's talking about during his time at Tottenham, not going back in the history, not pre-Levy, not pre-Scholar. His time at Tottenham Hotspur. The same thing happened over and over again. He's seen us qualify for the Champions League, get £150 million windfall, and we don't even spend it, and we spend 100 million on 7 players. He just sees the same things, repeat it over and over again. Now, like I said, the timing of it is atrocious, absolutely atrocious, but there is no doubt in my mind that was a direct hit at Daniel Levy.
What do you think about what Kate said about his relationship with Ange, and that shouldn't kind of matter? Well, he's an employee of the club.
Yep,
and,
correct.
And regardless of his relationship with Ange, it's not right that he kind of would look to leave just if Ange leaves. You know, like that isn't the kind of personality maybe. That is me. Like you should be wanting to play for Tottenham, not for Ange.
That I completely agree with Kate. Completely agree with Kate. As we all say, there's no man bigger than the club. There's no man bigger than the club, and you are meant to be on the leadership team. No man, like I said, no man is big. I completely agree with Kate there. Completely. I mean, obviously, that when they get back to the training ground, there is going to be a conversation held immediately, isn't there? With Frank. Probably with Levy as well, and we'll see what happens. But I agree completely with Kate on that. What she said there.
What's your gut telling you, Brian? Do you think Frank can talk him around?
I think the bigger thing is, can a team afford to pay to get him out of the club? Maybe Frank can soften the blow of trying to stay at Spurs, but then you got to remember his contracts. Will he sign a new contract? That if he doesn't commit to a contract, then I don't think we've got an option. That's the thing.
You got left, Brian.
And I think it's 2 years now, Tim. Is it right? We're going into
2 years this summer, yeah. Yeah.
So you got to start looking at it that way as well. If he's feeling this way, then he's not going to commit. You've got to start looking at it that way. And do you want someone that's feeling that way within the camp?
Yeah. So, in terms of you guys, go to you, Jim. Would you offer him a deal, a contract? Would you try and convince him to sign one?
Look, we know what a player he is, right? We know what he can be. I mean, let's be honest. Without him in the last section of the European Cup, we don't win it, right? He was fantastic. I honestly believe that. We know what a player he can be. He's won the World Cup. But for me, right, I love Romero. When he's on it, he's just sensational. But for me, since we've had him, he has too many periods where he's in and out, and then he has these bozo moments where he gets sent off, or not lately. I have to take that back, really. But he frustrates me, Sim, to hell, right? Because I look at other top defenders that don't do what he does, and he's a frustrating player because we know how good he is. I think that's. I mean, I don't really want to answer that because that's down to Frank to see what Frank can do with him and get out of him, and if he can get him back on the, you know, with the right frame of mind. He just, for me, he's out of games too much. His mind's not there. Am I making sense? You know, it really, really frustrates me because we know how good he is, and sometimes I watch him and I just think, oh my God, what's happened to this guy? You know, and that's the type of player he is. If you look at last season, he was probably worse more games than he was good.
I think we remember the bad ones more just because of how frustrated we are after those games. Whereas if he has a game where there's a little incident, we're not going to remember them as much. I agree with you, Jim. In terms of him in Europa late in the season, he was fantastic. And he really dragged us, I felt, to that Europa League title.
Yeah,
I think the way he defended. Yeah. And look, that's what he's very good at. He's so good in these cup competitions. You see, for Argentina, he's won every cup competition he's ever competed in for Argentina.
Yeah.
2 Copas and a World Cup. He's never not won a competition that he's been in for Argentina. And that was a country that went years and years and years without winning a trophy, even with Messi in the team. They got to finals, they got very far, but they could never get over the line. Messi had never won an international trophy before.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
So, like, this guy has a serious mentality. He knows how to get these wins over the line. But there is definitely a question mark over a league campaign when there's 38 games and you have to keep your concentration for every game, and whether he has that ability to be a top centre-back. Well, I guess the reality is we just haven't seen it at Tottenham. Him play
I haven't seen enough of it.
Enough of it in a league season. Although he did get Serie A Player of the Year at Atalanta, so maybe it is a Tottenham thing. But for sure, since he's come to Tottenham, I think we can all agree there's been a bit of frustration that he's just been a bit too inconsistent at the back, making too many mistakes at crucial times. Getting himself sent off sometimes at stupid moments. Bit of a hothead. Bit rash, but we also know when he's got his mind switched on, he is one of the best in the league. I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Kate, would you try and offer him a new deal?
I would, yeah, 100%. I think he's been injured a lot this season, but I'm not convinced, and I'll get slated for saying this. I'm not convinced that a lot of that isn't down to Angie's tactics and this, that, and the other. It might not be. I'm not saying it is, but it might be. I think
he's Romero, gone now. You can say it, Kate, to your heart's content.
Yeah, I still get abuse for it, but at the end of the day, I think Romero, he does have it in him, but I think since he's been put in the captaincy sort of group, I do think he's levelled out a bit. And I think if we can get a fee for Sonny this year and get Sonny out the door, I think Romero steps in as captain, which I think will do him the world of good, and that could be enough to convince him to do a renewal of his contract. However, if he won't renew, I would be trying to get a fee for him while we can. I wouldn't just keep him and let it run down so he ends up going on a free. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to keep him. I like Romero. I like his pairing with Van der Ven. But we'll have to see. It might have already made his mind up.
Moving on to I got. You gonna say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Frank will actually be a better manager for Romero than Ange.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, I think Dragshin and Danso will be looking at Frank, thinking, I can really be. I'm in the money here. I'm going to be a lot better. I can under Frank, because I think you saw what he did with Brentford and how compact they can be defensively. Like, they're not always isolated.